We have a quorum. We're missing Mr. Smith today, but we're going to proceed. I'm going to have Terry lead us in the prayer and the pledge.
Our most gracious Heavenly Father, thank you for the day that you've given us today, the beautiful weather that we're supposed to have. Please be with each of the commissioners today as they make decisions that affect our citizens and our city. Also be with all of our government, our national, our state, our county, and our city government as everyone is working through things, and just help us to have a great state of Texas and the United States of America. Please forgive us of our sins and help us today as we go on after the meeting and do our work, and let us be able to do it to your good and to your judgment, and let us do what you want us to do. Thank you for your blessings. In your name, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Consent agenda. The commission may request for a consent agenda item to be moved to the regular agenda for presentation and public comment. Otherwise, the consent agenda will be considered in one vote. We're going to move the preliminary plat of Paulann Church Addition and Kent Distributors Subdivision Section 1 to the regular agenda. So the minutes from last month's meeting would be the only item on the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? 6-0. All right, so preliminary plat of Paulann Church Addition. This is a request for approval of a preliminary plat of Paulann Church Addition being comprised of all of Tract A and 4 acres out of Tract B, Paulann Park Addition, Section 2, and 3 unaddressed tracts immediately west comprising a total of 22.747 acres located west of Gordon Boulevard between Smith Boulevard and East Houston Hart Expressway frontage road.
Bear with us just for a moment. We may have a dead battery, so we'll get this straightened out. Right. Okay. So because this was moved to the regular agenda, we're going to do the preliminary plat and the final plat of Paulann together as with 2 different motions, but we're going to present it together. So the preliminary plat was 22.747 acres of land. This is the Paulann Church property at Gordon and Smith. And the final plat area will be 14.77 acres, the area in blue. They also own land over here to the east, but that will not be part of the request today. So the church is preparing to expand and build a larger sanctuary, and as part of that needs to plat some of the vacant property that they own. As part of that request, in order to do a final plat, the subdivision ordinance does not allow any remnant pieces, and so as part of that, the preliminary plat would have to cover the remnant, which goes all the way to the end, even though the final plat is only up to here. As part of the final plat, the applicant is proposing a future sidewalk, which will be pretty much where Hope Court is in the front entrance here, and will extend west to the edge of the property. So there would be a sidewalk down the road, and that'll be part of permitting when they come in for the expansion. No variances requested on this. Staff looked at the preliminary plat and the final plat. The final plat will conform with the preliminary plat completely, the same configuration. The remaining 7.97 acres to the west will be, Lot 2 will be final platted separately. Both also conform with the comprehensive plan. The commercial frontage on a Houston Hart Expressway accommodates the larger traffic volumes, and also in the future land use policies for commercial properties talk about pedestrian connectivity, so that sidewalk will provide connectivity for church patrons as well as people in the neighborhood. Finally, we believe both plats conform with the intent of purpose statements in the subdivision ordinance. There will be a new driveway along the north side of the property and the sidewalk, and that'll provide greater traffic and pedestrian circulation through the neighborhood. Staff's recommendation is to approve the preliminary plat, subject to the 5 conditions of approval. And the reason we've pulled this to the regular agenda is all of those 5 conditions talked about prior to final platting, and so they're not really conditions, they're notes. So we're going to ask, and I can read those into the record in a minute, we're going to ask all of the 5 conditions of the preliminary plat are made notes. So there will be no conditions and 5 notes when you vote on that item. And then approve the final plat of Paulann Church Edition Section 1, subject to the 6 conditions of approval for that plat. This concludes staff's presentation. Any questions or comments? And I'm happy to read those into the record if you'd like.
If we could just see the conditions so that we have an opportunity to read through them.
Okay. This is the summary for the preliminary plat. So the water main and service connections, again, only when Lot 2 is final platted. Sewer main and service connections, again, only when Lot 2 is platted. Drainage study, widening Smith Boulevard, and fire hydrants. So these
Okay.
would still be required down the road, but they would only be required when they come in for a final plat of that next section.
Okay.
And this is for the final plat, so a copy of the tax certification. Preliminary plat has to be approved first, which it will. You'll vote on that first. Install the sidewalk prior to final building occupancy. Install the water main and service connections, a drainage study, and again, the fire hydrants.
Okay. Anyone have questions for Mr. Fisher? I open this up for public comment. Anyone wish to speak on this case, please come forward. State your name.
Good morning, Russell with SKG Engineering. Thanks staff and engineering for working with us on this. So really just be happy to answer any questions that you have. And for clarification on the final plat condition of the drainage study, that's tied to the building permitting construction phase portion of it. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Assistant City Engineer. I just want to concur with what Mr. Gawley said, that we have discussed it and we are in agreement to go ahead and defer the drainage study until building permit process. Thank you.
Okay. We need to state that in the conditions of approval. We're talking about the final plat. Is that correct, Russell?
Condition number 5 of the final plat.
Okay. I'm going to close public comment. Any questions or a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the preliminary plat for Paulann Edition with the 5 notes in place.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to approve the preliminary plat. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 6-0. So we need a separate motion for the final plat.
I make the motion to approve the final plat as proposed with conditions.
Okay.
That's the deferral of the drainage study as well.
Could you take it back? With conditions to the final plat, being one, copy of tax certification, preliminary plat to be approved first, install sidewalk prior to final occupancy, install water, main, and service connections, drainage study, fire hydrants to be.
Drainage study at the time of building permit,
Drainage.
correct?
That's right.
Okay.
Okay, drainage study at the time of building permit and fire hydrants to be reviewed at time of permitting.
Okay, we have a motion
Second.
and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 6-0. All right, Kent Distributors Subdivision, Section 1, a request for approval of a final plat of Kent Distributors Subdivision, Section 1, being 8.647 acres located southwest of the intersection of West 33rd Street and North Bryant Boulevard.
Good morning, Commissioners. Hillary Bucher, Senior Planner. We are moving on to Kent Distributor Subdivision, Section 1. This is a final plat of almost 9 acres, 8.647. It's at the corner of West 33rd and North Bryant Boulevard. The current zoning is CGCH with a future land use of commercial in SMD number 2, Tom Thompson's district in the Riverside neighborhood. So to look on the map here, you'll see 33rd and then Bryant, and then this would be the Riverside Golf Club Road right behind it. So it's a proposed final plat. It is unplatted tracts being platted into one lot. You can see it's a fairly large area there. We are recommending approval. It's conformity with the comprehensive plan. The CGCH zoning will allow for a mix of commercial uses consistent with the commercial future land use. And it's a continuation of the existing development along North Bryant Boulevard. It's also conforming with the intent of purpose statements. It will accommodate the additional lot for new commercial, and the new streets will improve connections within the area. So staff is recommending approval of the final plat of Kent Distributors Subdivision, Section 1, subject to 7 conditions of approval. They have to design and install the water mains and service lines, design and install sewer main and service lines, improve West 33rd Street, improve Riverside Golf Club, submit a drainage study. 6 is a copy of the tax certificate, and 7, illustrate the building setback lines on the plat. Does anyone have any questions?
Any questions for the staff? All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Going to open it up for public comment.
Good morning, Russell with SKG. Thanks staff for working with us, and engineering was also so gracious to defer the drainage study until the building permitting phase of this project as well. Be happy to answer any questions.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, Russell.
So on this one, Hillary, we have the 7 conditions, and then there's 3 side notes also that goes with that. Is that correct?
So there are 3 side notes that go with this. Again, just notes, not conditions of this plat. The sidewalks will be looked at during the building permit phase. This is a heavily traveled area with a lot of car congestion, so making sure there's adequate pedestrian circulation is vital in this area. TxDOT coordination will be necessary because 87 is a TxDOT highway, and fire hydrants will be looked at as the site develops. So there is one existing, but depending on the structures that are built, they may need to be looked at the time. Thank you.
All right, anyone else wish to speak on this case? I'm going to close public comment, a discussion, or a motion.
Make a motion to approve with the 7 conditions of approval on the final plat for Kent Distributors. Okay, okay, with the drainage study being done at the time of permit? Is that what we had?
Yes, ma'am. So condition number 5.
Number 5.
If you choose, we could be deferred to.
Deferred until, right, study and building.
I second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? 6-0. Regular agenda, subdivision plats. Planning Commission has final authority for approval. Appeals may be directed to City Council. Bentwood Country Club Estates, Section 41, public hearing consideration of request for approval of final plat of Bentwood Country Club Estates. Section 41, and a variance from Chapter 9-5 of the Land Subdivision, or Land Division and Subdivision Ordinance from the requirement for a sidewalk for public safety being 6.595 acres of land located east of Pine Valley Street and North Bentwood Drive.
Good morning, Commissioners. Sherry Bailey from the Planning Division. Bentwood Country Club Estates, Section 41, has asked that you table their application until a date specific next month at your regular meeting, May 20th.
Okay. This case has been requested to be tabled until the next Planning Commission meeting, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Anyone wish to make a motion?
Make a motion to postpone.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to table this case until next month's meeting. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? 6-0. First replat of lots 37 to 48, Mallena Heights addition. Public hearing and consideration of request for approval of a first replat of lots 37 through 48, Mallena Heights addition, and 2 variances, a variance from Section 9-3A5 of the Land Development and Subdivision Ordinance to allow East 39th Street to have no curb or gutter, and B, a variance from Section 10-3A2 of the Land Development and Subdivision Ordinance to maintain a minimum paving width of 26 feet in lieu of 40 feet with no sidewalk for East 39th Street, an urban local street, being 3.23 acres located on East 39th Street.
As the Planning Commission will remember, this was tabled to this date specific. The applicant has now requested that it be withdrawn and that they will resubmit at a later date.
Okay, we have a request from the applicant to withdraw this case. Do I have a motion?
So move.
I have a motion
Second.
and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? 6-0 to withdraw this case. Thank you. Replat of lots 16 and 17, Block 2, Riverfalls Subdivision. Public hearing and consideration of a request for approval of a replat of lots 16 and 17, Block 2, Riverfalls Subdivision being 1.124 acres located west of the intersection of Ben Ficklin Road and Waterfalls Road.
This is an application to actually take lot 16 and 17, combine them into a lot 16A. 5 notices were sent out. We had 1 approval. There were no oppositions. In looking at the site, you can see where we have identified the 2 lots that will be combined. This area was platted about 7-8 years ago, but has been slow to develop. And so it is a beautiful piece of property that is located off of the river. That is a picture of the house and the lot adjacent to the house where it will be combined. Staff is recommending approval of this replat with 2 conditions: that the tax certification from Tom Green County come in prior to recordation, and indication that the drainage study may be required if the impervious area changes by 5%. Are there any questions?
Any questions for the staff? All right, we're going to open this up for public comment. Anyone wish to speak on this case, please come forward. State your name.
Commission Herb with SKG. Essentially, they're just turning 2 lots into 1 lot so they can build an accessory building. But I could answer any questions you might have.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Again, Andy Vaselli, Assistant City Engineer. Number 2 actually should be a note, not a condition of the plat approval, because we don't know what their intentions are for this lot. If they're just going to leave it as a, I think Herb said, an accessory building, if they don't meet that 5% change in impervious area, then drainage study is not required. So technically, it should be a note, not a condition of approval.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Is that standard on any submission? Is 5% what triggers a drainage study? That's pretty standard?
Normally, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, those are the conditions of a drainage study, 1 acre or more, and change 5% or more.
Okay.
Some of them, depending on their plat, you know what they're doing. You know, if it's a residential development of 10 acres where they're doing a bunch of little lots, you know, they're going to eventually get to that point.
Yes, sir.
This one, where you have 2 lots going into one, a lot of these times it's just somebody wants a big yard.
Right.
Again, it's a little bit dependent upon the situation.
Okay. Thank you. So we could move item 2 to notes instead of making it a condition of approval. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak on this case? Please come forward. All right, I'm going to close public comment. Discussion among us or a motion?
Move to approve as presented, but do we need to make that, do we need to put that,
Item 2,
we need to move item 2
Drainage to notes.
as a note?
not a
Okay.
condition.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to approve as the staff has presented, with the exception of moving note or condition 2 to the notes. All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 6-0. All right. Final plat of Paulann Church Addition, Section 1. Public hearing and consideration of a request for approval of a final plat of Paulann Church Addition, Section 1, being comprised of all of Tract A and 4 acres out of Tract B, Paulann Park Addition, Section 2,
Yeah,
being
Travis,
14.
this
We've
is the
already done
one
this.
that we
We've already
did
done.
with, in companion with the preliminary, so that one's
Great.
been approved.
So that one's done. Next item. Perfect. First replat in lots 1 and 2, Fred Williams Subdivision, number 2. Public hearing and consideration of a request for approval of first replat in lots 1 and 2, Fred Williams Subdivision, number 2, and a variance from section 10-3A2 of the Land Development and Subdivision Ordinance to allow Lake Drive, an urban minor collector street, to maintain a 30-foot pavement width in lieu of the required 50 feet, being 1.04 acres located southwest of Lake Drive and west of 33rd Street.
Hey, Hillary Bucher again. We're moving on to Fred Williams Subdivision number 2. It is the first replat in lots 1 and 2. We're looking at a little over an acre here at the corner of West 33rd Street and Lake Drive. The current zoning is RS1 with the future land use of neighborhood. SMD number 2, Tom Thompson, and the Riverside neighborhood. The proposed plat takes previously platted lots and divides part of those previously platted lots into 5 lots. They are also requesting the variance from 10-3A2, to allow the pavement width of Lake Drive to remain 30 feet in lieu of the required 50. Staff is recommending approval of the final plat. The RS1 zoning will allow the residential uses consistent with the neighborhood, and it's a continuation of the existing development to the west. It's also conforming with the intent of purpose statements. The additional lots will accommodate new residences, and the streets will improve connection within the block. We are also recommending approval of the variance. The street currently functions in its current condition. This is being recommended by Planning and Engineering. It's a small infill project in an area with largely platted lots. The existing street widths and configurations are already significant for the area, and we're not granting the variance would not vary any other provisions. Again, we believe the existing street widths are good today. If you looked in your staff report, you'll see that the traffic counts that have been done on that street are significantly lower than any other minor collectors, so the street functions more as a local street. Staff is recommending approval of the first replat in lots 1 and 2, Fred Williams subdivision number 2, and approval of a variance from chapter 10-3A2, subject to 10 conditions of approval. They need to correct the signature block. We need a copy of the tax certificate. They need to correct the right-of-way dimension. They had the incorrect dimension for Lake Drive. Illustrate the building setback lines. I believe they've already worked on that one. Show the boundaries of the adjoining streets, alleys, easements, lots, and tracks. So it's, again, just part of the line work for the plat. They need to talk to 911 addressing to request the address changes. Install the sewer main lines and service connections, or submit a financial guarantee. Submit a drainage study and construct the necessary improvements, install water lines and sewer service lines to each lot, and improve Lake Drive or seek a variance, which again they are seeking for this case. Does anyone have any questions?
Questions for the staff? All right, thank you. We're going to open it up for public comment.
Morning, Erica Carter from Carter Fence Engineering, here to answer any questions you may have.
Anyone have questions for Erica? Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on this case? Please come forward. All right, we're going to close public comment. Anyone want to discuss or make a motion?
I make the motion subject to the 10 conditions of approval. And is the, do I need to specify the drainage study?
Workout today, aren't I? I'm getting close to 10,000 steps already this morning. No, leave that condition on there because that is a requirement of the plating conditions. And this goes back to the previous discussion, because they're going from one larger lot to 5 individual lots. The drainage study is required. It's not a if statement in this case, if that makes sense.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
I make the motion to approve as proposed.
All right. We have a motion and a second to approve as proposed by the city staff with the conditions for approval. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 6-0. Rezonings. City Council has final authority for approval of rezonings. Z19-05, SKG Engineering, public hearing and consideration of request for approval of a rezoning from low-rise multifamily zoning district to the general commercial zoning district on 2.047 acres located in the 5100 block of West Houston Hart Expressway.
Okay, we'll move on to Z1905. SKG Engineering is the applicant. It's a little over 2 acres in the 5100 block of West Houston Hart Expressway. They are requesting a rezoning from RM1, which is low-rise multifamily, to CG, general commercial. SMD number 6, Billy DeWitt in the Bluffs neighborhood. The future land use is commercial for this area, and the current zoning, again, is low-rise multifamily. These are just some pictures of the site. There's some significant grade changes, but it's vacant land at this point. The frontage here is Houston Hart Expressway frontage road. The subdivision to the back would be the Bluffs. Again, looking back toward the residential, and then this one actually looks back to the north. So there's just some flat area along the highway. We are recommending approval. The comp plan designates this area as commercial, so the CG zoning would be in keeping with this designation. The lots meet the minimum standards, and any new development would be required to meet zoning regulations. It fits in with the commercial area along the frontage road, and it would be required screening and setbacks from the adjacent residential. The property was annexed and zoned RM1 in 1997 through 2 different processes, but multifamily has never developed in this area, so we believe some of the conditions have changed. We expect little to no adverse impacts on the natural environment. The community need rezoning would be reflective of the continuing need for commercial along West Houston Hart. And again, the development pattern along Houston Hart Expressway is mostly commercial. We sent out 11 notices. We've received none in opposition and none in favor. Staff is recommending approval of the rezoning from low-rise multifamily zoning district to the general commercial zoning district. Does anyone have any questions?
Questions for the staff? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to open it up for public comment. Anyone wish to speak on this case, please step forward. State your name.
Good morning, Russell with SKG Engineering. The property owner to the south and west is under contract to buy this, and one of the conditions of that purchase sale was this rezone, and they're looking to kind of incorporate it into that larger tract there to the south and west. So be happy to answer any questions.
So what kind of buffering, I meant to ask Hillary, between the residents right there on Southampton?
So they would be required a 10-foot setback along the residential sides of the lot lines, and they would be required 6-foot opaque privacy fencing when adjacent to residential uses or districts. So this property is currently zoned commercial, the one I just pointed at. This little triangle is actually still a remnant of the RM1. This is the substation. So the only residential uses that directly touch would be right here along this portion of the lot. That being said, if this track and this track stay RM1, they would still have the 10-foot setback and required fencing.
Ms. Jackson, to kind of further help with that, they're looking to kind of tie these two properties together. And as you can see, this area is somewhat of a pond, kind of, and there's a large hill that kind of knolls out right there. And so the development for our tract is, how do I clear that? I didn't hit low enough in the corner. Okay. So we're really looking to kind of bring a line across to take out that little pie sheet that really blocks off a lot of our frontage. And this larger area back here is looking to be a detention pond. So really a lot of our commercial impact is going to be focused over here, and this back area is going to function as our larger drainage relief area for this. Because we've been talking to the property owners that live there along Southampton. Several of them called, had concerns and questions, and we've had conversations with them, and we're hoping the drainage currently, and I may be going too much here, but the drainage kind of does this kind of loop-de-doo through there, for great engineering terms. So what we'll be looking to do there is maybe do something like that with the drainage, and we're going to be working with engineering, and I think we can help kind of some of their concerns and problems and some of the issues going on in that area. So that's kind of what I can share with you at this time.
Okay, I was just, there's a brand new home and another one for sale right there, the 5801 and 5805. So that will cover most of 5801 in the back. That would be that would be your drainage pond.
Yes, ma'am.
And then it comes to that corner on 5805.
Yes, ma'am. And we've talked to Draught Construction, Mr. Randy Bell, about all of that, and he and the neighborhood we've had several conversations with a lot of them. So we believe, and I think this will be actually good for the neighborhood and the drainage in this area on Drexel and Southampton. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Russell. Anyone else wish to speak on this case? All right, we're going to close public comment. Anyone else have questions or wish to make a motion?
Move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve as presented by the staff. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
We're 5-1. All right, conditional uses. The Planning Commission has final authority for approval. Appeals may be directed to the City Council. CU 19-01, Padilla. Public hearing and consideration of a request for approval of a conditional use to allow a single-family residence within a low-rise multifamily residential zoning district located at 212 Magdalen Street.
Thank you. As you can see, this is a small piece of property at 212 North Magdalen Street. It is in District 3. It is part of the downtown neighborhood. In this case, we sent 25 notices to the surrounding property area, and we received no responses back. The future land use for this area has it as downtown, and the present zoning, as we indicate, is low-rise residential. When you look at this piece of property, you can see that the area is a transition zone. It's about a block and a half from the Shannon Medical Center. There are a number of medical offices in the area. And this is the house at 212. It's a small house. It's between two apartment complexes. And then across the street is a parking lot for the Shannon Medical Center. In talking with the applicant, staff went through what are the requirements for a short-term rental, and those are reflected in the conditions that are before you. That the applicant will register with the city and the state for the hotel occupancy tax, that there is no exterior evidence of the short-term rental, that the annual fire safety inspection will be obtained and complied with, that they have to adhere to Section 406 of the zoning ordinance, and that the number of bedrooms shall not exceed 3, and the conditional use is not transferable. Staff is recommending approval of this. As we indicated, it is in a transition area. There is a great need for short-term rental for medical in that area, and it seems to fit with the surrounding properties. Are there any questions?
So we're rezoning this to single family.
No, what we
No.
are doing
Or are we just
is
looking at short-term rental?
approving the conditional use for a short term.
Okay.
And that last condition is that it's non-transferable?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Anyone wish? I'm going to open this up for public comment. Anyone wish to speak on this case, please come forward.
Lori Padilla of JKLS Properties. Are there any questions?
No questions. Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on this case? All right, I'm going to close public comment. Anyone have questions or wish to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve as presented.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve as presented by the staff. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 6-0. CU 19-03, BK Portable Buildings. Public hearing and consideration of a request for approval of a conditional use to allow the retail sales of portable and ready-built buildings with Type 3, general outdoor, unlimited storage, and defined in Section 504 of the zoning ordinance in the general commercial zoning district on .688 acres located east of Wright Street between West 12th and West 13th Streets.
Planning Commissioners, Jeff Fisher again, Senior Planner. This is conditional use 1903 BK Portable Buildings. The current zoning on the properties general commercial CG. So that allows 10% of the area outdoor for storage and sale. The applicant wants to, which is called Type 2 storage. The applicant needs the conditional use to allow type 3 outdoor storage, which would be unlimited outdoor storage minus the setbacks. Reason being, they have a property in the ETJ where they sell portable ready-built buildings, and they want to come closer to the city, as I understand, to be closer to customers, and so they need that extra space. It's on 0.688 acres east of Wright Street between West 12th and West 13th Street, so that's just south of Baymont Hotel. District 4, Lucy Gonzalez in the Blackshear neighborhood. The future land use is commercial, and the current zoning, as mentioned, is CG General Commercial. This is looking north on Wright Street right now, so the land is completely vacant. This is looking south on Wright Street. This is northeast at the properties, and also from this angle, north-southwest at the properties. The applicant has provided some pictures of what this would look like. One of the conditions we had talked about is if they're going to have outdoor storage, since one of the buildings essentially will act as a sales office, they are coming in for permitting for this, and the sales office building, as I'll show you in a minute on the site plan, will be closest to the west. We wanted to have at least one principal building there to have customers go in and pay, or if they need to do any work. So it will look something like this. These are some of the other samples. There's several of these types of businesses in town. There's a couple off of South Bryan and Templin Road. There's also SNG Satellite, which sells some of them that got a special use. It's one of my first cases in 2014 off of West Houston Hart Expressway. So this is the site plan the applicant has provided. So this is West 12th and West 13th. So in order to move forward with this, the staff has recommended several conditions for this, just given that it's very close to residential to the south and to the east. So they would plant 3 street trees along Wright Street and along West 12th Street, as well as a 4-foot-high fence along West 12 facing the residential. And then the required 6-foot-high fence they would have to install here, and they will, as well as closing some of the gaps in the existing fence. The yellow lines indicate barriers, basically, so they can't have anything within 10 feet of the residential zoning to the east, and so having some sort of curb stops or whatever to prevent any storage within those areas as well. Staff is not recommending approval or denial on this because we wanted to open this up for further discussion and see how you'd like to proceed. We've got some arguments for and against this, and given the context and the specific location, this is a unique situation where we did not provide a recommendation at this point, but we did provide arguments for or against. So impacts minimized. We think the applicant has done a good job. They are going to be putting in sidewalks along Wright Street. They've got 3 street trees along Wright and along South facing the residential. So they are trying to mitigate the impacts and to be consistent with the commercial future land use policies. It talks about mitigating impacts when you're adjacent to residential uses. Consistency with the zoning ordinance, it does comply with the development standards in the CG zoning and letbacks. However, the CG zoning was really limited for that 10% outdoor storage when it was written. The intent of policy statements, if you go into the zoning ordinance, I think it's 304, it talks about that really being for not necessarily for unlimited outdoor storage. That unlimited outdoor storage was really for heavier commercial and for industrial areas. Now, this is not oil field equipment. This is portable storage buildings. It's more of a retail use. So we leave that up to you to decide if we believe that this is appropriate for the area. The 3 other portable storage building businesses that I've researched in town, as I mentioned, the SNG Satellite, and then the 2 off of Templin and South Bryan, all of those were near major arterials. This is unique because Wright Street doesn't connect directly to Bryant, so they would have to kind of go in from 13th and then come down. Is it compatible with the surrounding area? Again, the mitigation measures will definitely help screen from the residential. However, you could have potentially traffic bringing in and out those storage units using a local street, Wright Street, and not using Bryant to get there. So we have put a condition in that there's no commercial traffic using the local roads. I don't anticipate any effect on the natural environment, although there could be some concerns of stormwater flow as you put those buildings. There's no paved surface underneath there. We did not make that a requirement, but we're leaving that open to you as well. Half of them I've seen have had paved surfaces, and half of them I've seen do not have paved surfaces at this point. Community need, there's definitely demand for portable storage buildings. I've talked with the applicant. That's the reason for coming into the city limits. There seemed to be a pretty hot item right now, but the location was the concern that we had. And finally, the development patterns. We've put a condition in that there's no commercial vehicles or access from West 12th Street. So again, 12th Street is that local road where you've got houses to the east and south. 13th Street is all exclusively commercial. So the only condition would be, hopefully that would mitigate some of the issues of any commercial traffic coming down on 12th Street. 25 notices were mailed out. We have not received any in response. This concludes staff's presentation. So at this point, we're moving forward with a no recommendation of a conditional use to allow the retail sale of portable and ready-built buildings with Type 3 general outdoor storage as defined in Section 504 of the ordinance in the general commercial district on the properties. This concludes staff's presentation. We do have, as you saw in your staff report, several conditions of approval should you decide to move forward, and we can discuss those now or afterwards.
Okay.
You said one of the conditions of approval was a 6-foot fence, but the plan showed a 4-foot fence.
Correct. Let me go back quickly to the site plan. So as per zoning, they are required, because you've got residential zoning here and here, they're required to put 6-foot high fencing along here and here. A portion of it was already installed from here to here. So they'll have to, the purple indicates they'll have to basically enclose this and continue the 6-foot high fence that's already, part is already put in between 13th and the alley, and then install a brand new fence between the alley and 12th Street. The 4-foot fence is along the south property line. So basically fill in the 6-foot high fence here. Zoning requires it anyway. We're making a condition that they do the 4-foot fence here and plant the 3 trees because you've got residential homes to the south.
Okay.
The alley is still, the alley will remain there?
Correct.
Not taking the alley out? Okay. And then these buildings they are portable buildings. It's like basically a car lot only for buildings.
That's right.
Okay, so they're going to be coming and going. You know, someone will purchase it, they'll move out, new one comes in on the, okay.
That's right. With one exception, this building right here will act as the sales office and will
Okay.
get a permit.
So is there parking that goes?
Yes,
there?
they're required to provide 2 parking spaces, and so they've got 2 spaces off of Wright Street. And we do believe that's the best of the situation because at least Wright Street will connect to 13th, which connects to Bryant. So this way, we anticipate and we hope that cars will come in from 13th and come down in like this and not use the local streets to get there.
Okay, so the biggest concern I have about this location is the proximity to single family.
Yes.
There are a lot of homes adjacent connecting to these lots that are in question. We have manufactured home dealerships and we have the sea container lot dealerships within our city limits. What are the conditions for zoning and allowing the use of those in the areas that they're located? And how would that differ from what's being proposed with this lot?
We'll have to pull that up real quick to see. Off the top of my head, I don't recall. My guess is that those would not be allowed in this type of zoning, but
Okay.
I can try to confirm that.
Okay.
Commissioner Stribling, you're referring to the sale of sea containers or just having sea containers as an accessory use to a permitted use?
And I don't know what it is, but there's a development north of this location on Bryant Boulevard near the Shannon Clinic that's just a little bit north of here that has a bunch of sea containers stored on it. I didn't know what what type of zoning that was, how that compared to this, what the conditions were for that business to operate. I see those. I see sea container lots, the manufactured home lots in a very similar fashion as I would the portable building use that's being proposed. That's why I was asking.
In section 504 of the zoning ordinance, there is the capability for the storage that's being talked about here, but it is in the CH, ML, MH, and CGCH zoning districts. So those 4 zoning districts would allow this type of outdoor storage by right.
Okay. And this is general commercial, this is CG.
That's right. So basically, if you have portable already built buildings in a CG district, they consider it retail sales, and they limit it to 10% of outdoor storage. If, however, as Ms. Bucher was saying, yes, if you're in an industrial zone like a CH or higher, something that's more intense, they would call it wholesale trade, and it would be allowed in unlimited quantity outdoor. So a lot of those other zoning districts either had a lot more land available,
Right.
or they were zoned industrial or heavy commercial, which would allow it anyway.
So I agree with that. I agree with the zoning and the way that it's written, and I personally think that that's where businesses like this should be located, not in a CG district. That's my personal opinion. This is too close to the city center. This is on a major thoroughfare in the middle of our town, and it's surrounded by single family. So those would be my concerns about locating this business on this lot.
I think that it's compatible with the area, though. And there's a difference in a storage container. And these aren't storage buildings, these are nice buildings as far as portable buildings go, that
Right.
you're not comparing apples to apples.
Okay.
And with that, I mean, you're calling it outdoor storage, but they're not storing anything there. They're selling the building, so that it gets confusing in.
Well, they're storing the vacant buildings on the lot.
They are storing the buildings.
It's outdoor storage because they're vacant buildings.
Is it called auto storage?
That's something in our zoning ordinance too, and when they say outdoor storage, it includes the sale and/or storage. So it's both, it's the sale and storage outdoor of those structures.
We are limiting this just to these portable buildings. If they decide to breed something else in there, like oil field equipment, they'd have to come back, correct?
Yes, and I know if I had that case on my desk, I would probably recommend denial. I think this one was more challenging because it was retail oriented.
Right.
It's just the amount of storage that I think we had the concern about.
When a customer purchases one of these buildings, well, really, forget about the purchase. You have to get them there in the first place. Can you take me through, or can somebody take me through the vehicle? Because I've seen these delivered with, 1-ton trucks, and I've seen them on the back of, rather large trucks. But could you take me through in this particular location, how does that work, right? So what vehicles, in other words, what is the trajectory of these vehicles? How are they getting to and from, and what kind of traffic are these folks that live there going to have to deal with as far as size and weight of vehicle, things like that?
I'm gonna defer this to the applicant, I believe, who's here to, if she'd
Okay.
like to come up maybe for
Why
a
don't we
minute.
open it up for public comment?
Representative BK Portable Buildings, as far as your question regarding how they're delivered, they are delivered on an 18-wheeler, but we were hoping to keep that minimized. Obviously, 12th Street, we've discussed, we're not to
Can we
use.
go back to the aerial of this? Okay, that'll work.
So we were anticipating our trucks coming in off of Wright and staying completely away from the residences and probably using the alleyway for the most of the drop-offs and pickups so that they're off the roadway altogether, was our intention.
So there are curb cuts on either side of this lot at 12th and 13th Street from Bryant Boulevard, is that correct? You have to get You have to go over a street to get onto Wright.
I believe, to be honest, I don't believe there are curb cuts yet, but they would need an approach permit from Wright Street. Oh, from there?
Yeah, Jeff, can
I
you
believe
draw,
so.
can
If they're
y'all,
going north, they're going to have to exit a block before, correct?
That's correct.
Because they can't make the U-turn. And then if they're coming from, if they're coming from the south, they would do that. If they're coming from the north, heading into town, they could turn at that intersection where that red line is
Oh, that's correct, yes.
and jog across over onto Wright Street and come down that way. Is that,
That's
is that
right.
what you're thinking? Okay. Obviously, that road's not made for truck traffic, so it's a neighborhood road. Yeah, please.
Our trucks are not like our typical 18-wheelers. I mean, they're stretch beds.
Sir, I'm sorry, can you state your name?
Oh, yes, please.
My name is Brent Lowe. I'm actually
Thank
the
you.
owner of BK.
Okay.
Our bed of our trucks, they extend out. They're a single cab, 18-wheeler, I guess. They have retractable beds on them. They actually have a set of wheels underneath the axles that keeps them from ever getting in a position where they jackknife, number one. So that actually prevents, like when we go down the alleys in San Angelo, that we never get in a position to where we get in a jackknife situation.
Okay.
So as far as, like I said, the trailers get a lot shorter. So most of our buildings that we actually sell in San Angelo, because we stay under the 200 square foot rule. So we required to have a permit. So that's a lot of what is on the property itself. Most of our cabins and stuff like that are sold outside the county. And I actually have 2 lots. I have one in Ballinger too. So that kind of helps out a lot with our, how do I say it, just, the turning and everything right in there. I think that, I mean, it's not as, we make it real easy just getting in and out of a lot of the situations right there. So I don't know, when I drove it through there, it wasn't as bad a deal as I thought it would be. It was, even our drivers came out over there and they were like, this was easy for them, so.
I have a question for you. Are you willing to plant the trees and the city's conditions, to plant 3 trees and?
Yes, sir. My name's Howdy Johnston. We are going to plant the trees, install the sidewalks, the approaches, the fencing. I had a little deal wrote up here. The land that they're trying to lease has been vacant and grown up for years. Since the new ownership has been mowed and manicured. We've cleaned up the trees and tried to make it more presentable, being right there on the Bryant Thruway. We also, the can place that was on the corner, I know you guys probably remember how terrible that looked for years. It took 4 dumpster loads, to get all that cleaned up, and we've repainted and tried to make that more presentable to Bryant, and our goal is to make San Angelo, beautify San Angelo, create new tax revenue for the city and the schools in our community, and that's why we're also installing new sidewalks and everything on between 13th and 14th on the can place all around there. Even though it's not required by the city for us to do that, we're still doing it because we want to, beautify the area and have new smaller businesses come into the area. So, yes, we'll be taking care of the trees and the landscaping and fencing and stuff like that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate what you've done over there.
Yes, sir.
It's making a difference.
I think that since I kind of opened up that rabbit hole on the delivery vehicles, and I did that for a reason, right? So if somebody wanted to open a Dunkin' Donuts in that spot, right? Or if where Taco Bueno is now, if Taco Bueno wanted to be there instead of where they currently are, and it's a similar situation, well, so how does food get delivered, right? Same way, bigger
right.
truck, right?
Right, and I think that's what kind of Brett was trying to say was the trucks that they use to deliver these buildings and stuff are not big 18-wheelers. You know, they're the smaller condensed version because they do have to get into alleys and residential areas to deliver these things.
Right.
So I don't think it's going to tear up the Wright Street area, you know, or anything like that.
No, I agree. I agree 100%. I wanted to disprove my own point. That's why I said it, right? I mean, you would be allowing a delivery vehicle of some type anyway. And these guys plan on being great neighbors. I can already tell just by the way they're agreeing to do a lot of things on the extras. These are, to me, this is the kind of thing you want to go on in that particular spot.
Yes, sir.
Good morning. My name's John Kahn, and I'm an investor with Howdy Johnson on this property. And we appreciate you all being here, and we appreciate all the work Jeffrey did. This wasn't an easy one. Our feeling is that if we comply with all the things suggested, it will actually improve the view of that property quite a bit. One that we just were involved in is out, right across from Calvert Collision. A group of us have been putting together Bryant Thruway properties, and sometimes it takes a while. And we recently sold one tract. They're building a $2 million facility there now under construction, and it had to go through a lot of changes to make it farm with what the city wants, but I think that Jeffrey would agree it turned out to be a win-win situation and improved that area and brought some tax base to our city. But we appreciate your consideration, and we will do whatever necessary to make it look better. The long-term goal is to eventually acquire some of the more adjoining properties to put a piece together large enough for a retail outlet like a mini strip center or something like that. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, John. Anyone else wish to speak on this case? If you would, please come forward. All right, I'm going to close public comment, and welcome to continue the discussion up here, or if you have questions for the staff.
I would like to say there were 25 notices sent with no objections. An access road to the buildings is available. Easy access for big trucks to get in and out. I think the buildings are nice looking. I think knowing the neighborhood, it'll spruce up the neighborhood, if anything. It's compatible to the area. It shows a community need. And the applicant's willing to plant trees, fence, sidewalks, and put in approaches. And so I make the motion to approve.
Second.
Sorry, Mr. Urick, did you have something you wanted to say?
I do have a question, I guess, for maybe for staff. And Connolly brought it up, but there are 25 notices sent out, I think, in this case. In the prior case, there were 25 notices. There were 11 in this case. So we had 0 responses on 36 notices. Does that raise concern for anybody that we're not actually reaching the people that live in the area?
I think that we meet state requirement and local zoning, so we send out everyone within 200 feet.
I mean, I understand that we're compliant,
Yes,
but for all practical purposes, obviously there's not any results being generated. And so I think that's the purpose of those notices, and it's not working.
I think a lot of times people will, if they're against it, they're very quick to respond. If they are not, if they're for it or they're neutral, they're not as quick to respond.
Well, and in my case, I can speak to that. I had several phone calls,
And so a lot of them talked to me. I know Mr. Goley said they spoke to him. So there are some times where you speak to them, you answer questions, stuff like that, that is not presented in the PowerPoint. So what we're actually presenting is the mailed notices if we receive those. So we do hear from quite a few, and I know Jeff can probably speak to this case, but I know in mine, I spoke to people and answered some of their questions and concerns. So that could also be a factor.
What are the requirements for, I know we're supposed to put a sign on the lots for rezone cases. Is that, do you have to do that for a case like this where you have a conditional use?
And let me just add on to that. I mean, my biggest concern with this case is the proximity to residential. And so.
Mine as well.
I just don't know that I believe that they all understand exactly what's going to go in across the street from their house. Not to say that it's better or worse than what's there. I'm not saying either way, but I feel like there would have at least been some type of.
Well, within 200 feet of this, there's only probably 6 houses.
Well, can you go back to the aerial?
You know.
Let me point out one other thing that, and we haven't looked, at least I haven't looked in this particular area to see how many of those are owner occupied, but just so you're aware, we do notify the owner of the property.
These could
So
be
if
rentals.
any of these are rentals, the actual occupant does not get a notice, only the property owner.
That makes sense.
Do you have a slide that shows the notification?
Oh. I do not, but I can tell you that it would be, if it's within 200 feet, for example, this is 50 feet, so at the most, it would be up here and then this way, so it wouldn't be more than probably.
We can't see what you're drawing. Sorry. There we go.
Roughly like this.
Okay.
So there might be, and again, because everything to the north is commercial, so they wouldn't be included. So you're probably looking at about maybe 16 of, probably half of those lots are residential. And some neighborhoods are more active than others. Some have more stronger HOAs. I don't know about this neighborhood. I was surprised too. I didn't receive even any phone calls, nothing.
It's already a commercial property, though.
Yes,
and
it's
this is
zoned
a
commercial.
commercial use. And we have a motion and a second. I'm going to call for the vote.
Okay, so we have a motion here, and you seconded the motion to approve as it's presented by the staff?
Yes.
I'm sorry, here's the notification.
Oh, there we go.
We had it.
You did a very good circle, Jeff.
Pretty close.
Jeff, you mentioned that if we decide to move forward with this, there were conditions from the staff. Can we see those?
Correct, yes. So obtaining a building permit for the new sales office building. So one of those buildings closest to and we wanted it close to Bryant too, so you could see it, and it acts rather than just having the view of all the portable buildings there. And then on the other sides, they'd have the screening fence. So the first one is getting a permit. Ms. Lowe's agreed to do that. And number 2 is a revised site plan showing the improvements. So that's your new 4-foot high fence and the 3 trees to the south. The 6-foot high fencing, filling in the gaps on the east fence that would be required by zoning anyway. Installing the curb stops, so you can't have anything within 10 feet of that east fence, and then within, I think it's about 8 feet of the south property line as well, as per zoning. So having curb stops, they could have done something else there too, but curb stops was kind of the easiest one that would stop any development in there. No driveway access and no commercial vehicles from West 12th Street. So the applicant would be required to put in some signage that would show that. Our traffic operations department would create those signs. That might be a couple $100 at the most for maybe 2 of those signs. And then if they do put any lighting, that it's fully shielded. And then all existing trees on the site shall be preserved by the owner or replaced with an equivalent number of trees. So if they need more space and they cut some down, then just replace them one for one.
Okay. Conley, I'm going to go back to your motion. Does your motion include these conditions for approval?
Yes.
Okay. So we have a motion to approve with these conditions of approval from Conley. Anyone wish to make a second?
I made a second already.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second to approve as presented by the staff. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. So 5-1. All right, director's report.
So don't have anything for you today unless you all have any questions.
Anyone have questions for John?
No?
Nope. Thank you, sir. Future meeting agenda and announcements. The next regular meeting of the Planning Commission is tentatively scheduled to begin at 9 a.m. on Monday, May 20th, 2019, in Council Chambers of McNeese Convention Center, 501 Rio Concho Drive. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 6-0.